One, two. There we go. Hello to anybody who's joining us. So I haven't really planned anything. I've been a little bit busy making my studio a little bit better, working on some acoustic DIY stuff. And I've kind of got this verse that I've been working on with another producer, Hypermetric, that's been sitting here way too long that I need to finish up. Now that I'm done with... yeah, I just figured that out. Sorry about that. Now that I'm done with like my album and stuff, I think it's time to start finishing up all these old tracks that have been sitting here for way too long. So I'm happy with a lot of the stuff that he sent me, but some of the synths and stuff that I added, I'm not too happy with. So I want to go in and sort of fine tune those, and also maybe, if there's still time today, I don't know how long the stream will be. See if I can maybe structure it in a little bit more of a cohesive manner, because I think it's a little bit linear at this point. It's kind of just like a bunch of sounds that we both just threw in there. So yeah, let me know if you got any questions. I'm just going to play around with some stuff. I've got a strong cup of coffee here, so hopefully that'll keep me going for a little while. Yeah, let me know if you got any questions or anything like that. Hello to anybody who's joining us. just made ninjas. Is Faceplant good as it comes, or do you need extra bits from the Kilohertz toolbox? I would highly suggest going for the full toolbox. I know it's a bit pricey, but to be honest with you, like the speciality, I've kind of explaining it in, funnily enough, this week's video that's coming up on Friday. But you'll really start to see the power of the snap pins, like the external plugins, when you start fiddling with their other hosts, like Snap Heap and Multipass and that kind of stuff. And I think the whole environment, once you get to know the plugins, is super, super powerful. So, yeah, I highly suggest going for the full toolbox. That being said, if you do have stuff like the Sound Toys bundle and some other like high quality effects, then you can get away with, just using the generators inside Kilohertz, and then, automating filters outside and that kind of thing. But yeah, just for the entirety, to have access to the entire environment that they've made, I think is a super powerful thing. Is it just me, or does the Serum high-pass filters change? Maybe I'm going crazy, but that sounds a bit different to before. But it also looks like there's like this bump on the top that wasn't there before. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I missing any questions? Hey, do you always bounce your faceplant random effects? I feel like I lose control as I do, or able to come back to the synth later to edit. I think control is one of those things that, yes, it's good, but at the same time, it can be your detriment. Having too much control tends to force you not to move on. So with some things, like the main elements, like the main leads and stuff, I tend to leave in the midis, but like stuff like effects and that kind of thing, not only do I feel like it adds a whole new, please excuse my French, neighbors drilling on my walls here. It's driving me mad. I was actually going to film some videos today, but because of them, I decided I'm not going to be able to get a clean vocal audio recording, so let me just stream instead. But anyway, yeah, I feel like being able to just like bounce it out and move on is very powerful for workflow. You do kind of lose the control, but at the same time, it's a good thing, I think. So this is all live. Yes, Uncle Butt, this is live. Hey, interesting follow-up to that. Do you save every patch you create while producing music? No, not always. For the more simpler stuff, like squelches and that kind of thing, I don't. But if it's like something that I've kind of come up with and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea, often I'll save it because then I can come back to it and make a video, for you guys. Good morning from Portugal. Very nice track dash. Serum and phase plant. Cool stuff. Yeah. Well, actually, it was going to be mostly phase plant. Where'd you get your American accent, bruh? Hey, you probably recognize this track. Bappin Productions. Just saying. Never give up. I'm 40 plus and just got into the scene. Never give up. You just got to keep it at it grind daily. That's true. I'm 30 plus and look at me. Just kidding. Cool. So I'm trying to make a squelch sound, but it feels like this high pass filter is different. Maybe I'll try the distortions filter. A lot of things actually changed with Serum. Now, for some reason, with this latest update, I don't know if it's a bug, but you can't drag samples in anymore. You have to import them via the wavetable editor. So yeah, you do have the ability to drag out, but I think they balked the ability to drag in. So, Dash, please do a video on motivation. I wish I knew the key to that. Can you just save your effects as preset and use the one you like frequently? I don't understand the question, but I do often end up, like, I'll make, like, for example, certain things like risers and that kind of thing. I'll make like a master patch with a bunch of different things you can tweak in it. And I'll often just end up opening that and using that kind of thing and then just tweaking a couple of the things. So I often fall victim to using presets, but often they're my own presets. So plus and minus, I guess. Check out Harmer VST, insane synth. It is very good, but honestly, I never won with the interface. It's just a little bit strange for my eyes. It's a very powerful plugin, though. Have you tried Scilab VST? I've actually been meaning to get into that, to be honest with you. Been a little bit busy making DIY acoustic panels and all sorts. Dragon doesn't work. I know. Are you trying in Ableton or are you trying in Cubase? Because I thought, wait, maybe it's a Cubase thing, but I don't know. Steve, he's done us a favor, but he's also done us a dirty. But I mean, it's whatever. Like I actually did a video on it. I mentioned it in a video a few weeks ago, and I decided not to mention it because I wasn't sure if I was doing something wrong, and it was just my setup. But seeing you mention that also, it's a bit strange. Maybe it was a decision in an update. Who knows? Anyway, squelch time. Yeah, if you were only following now when I started adding this lead, it is indeed. There was this one sound that I like chopped that you had put in, but I felt like I wanted to actually recreate a synth on that, like. But I don't know if like a squelch or like a FM type of thing is going to work there. Do you drink, smoke, or do drugs? Yes. Some of the above. I won't mention which ones. so used to using Faceplant now that I'm like, I'll assign so much stuff to macros and then assign an LFO and like try to drag this onto the macro and then it just won't. So yeah, I think maybe let me just switch this over for Faceplant. So let's see what we can come up with here. I'm missing questions. Maybe I must move this chat screen a little bit closer to my eyes. Hello, sir. I've started following you recently, and you have propelled my mixes tenfold. Thank you. Oh, that's great to hear. What is the chain best used for stereo out for pre-mastering, and in what order? What do you mean? You mean on the actual stereo out channel? I recommend putting nothing on there if you're going to send it to the mastering engineer, because they will be able to determine what best suits the kind of stereo output of the track. FM type or slow deep squelch would fit, I guess. Well, I mean that would fit any, like 99% of Cytrons. But the trick is to get it right, get the right squelch or the right FM type. What is better? Make a dark sweep to phase plant with analog modulation or wavetable? Try both. Try a wavetable as a modulator. You get some pretty interesting gritty effects that way. I want to see try Ableton's wavetable. Unfortunately, I don't have Ableton, so I will never be able to try wavetable. Finding your Tuts videos got me back into production since a year or so. Helped me got motivation. Again to explore sound design. Warm thanks. I'm glad to hear that. Are you familiar with Citrus from ImageLine? Yeah. I actually started production with Fruity Loops, FL Studio. Can't remember what version it was back then, but it was a very, very many years ago. So yeah, I do remember Citrus, but I won't be able to tell you anything about it because it's been so many years. What's your feeling on hardware and software? I guess whatever floats your boat, whatever's going to achieve the goal that you want the quickest. I think software has the benefits of presets, quick workflow, quick tuning, that kind of stuff. Hardware has the benefits of immediacy, two hands. I don't believe there's any kind of audio difference between hardware and software. I think software has got to a point nowadays where the stuff is pretty damn good. So yeah. FM from sub. Can you explain what exactly happens while having FM from sub? So basically, FM is modulating the frequency of a signal. Let me actually just show you here what's happening. Let me open Serum again. The weird thing about Serum is that the FM from sub and the FM from B have two different. It was actually pointed out by. I think it was Xenosonics told me about it, the guy who made the vocal pack that I'm always using. He pointed it out to me that the sub FM and the FM from B actually have two different timbres. So essentially what FM is, I'm just going to put on these two, whatever, any sine wave will do. And when we turn FM from B up, we're essentially modulating the pitch of the sound at this shape. So if you turn the pitch down like really low here, you'll be able to hear it the easiest. But then like what happens when it's at like really high frequencies, you get these kind of grindy tones. But I think like the amount of FM that gets applied from the sub is like much higher. So check this out. If you set this to 50%, what the heck? I'm typing in 50. Oh, numlock. 50%. And then check this out. And now if we switch it to the FM from sub, it's like much louder. But anyway, hopefully that explains what the FM from B, what's happening there. I'm just getting into Wavetable and it's epic. Plus doesn't chow your CPU. You can do everything from atmospheres, pads, blah de blah. Will you make more Surge tutorials on more dark size stuff? Yeah, definitely planning more Surge stuff. Definitely stay tuned for that. I'm surprised you're saying not to put any chain on the pre-master, no plugins at all. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, if let's say for example, in my listening space, there's like it's not so accurate, and I've got like more bass in my room than I should have, or less. Then let's say for example I put an EQ on the master of the channel and I boost the bass so that it sounds good in my room. What's going to happen then is I'm going to send it to a mastering engineer who's got a perfect studio, and he's going to then try fix that boost that you've added. So I feel like anything that you add to the stereo output of the track is going to be a disservice to the mastering engineer, because he's going to then have to reset those settings, if that makes sense. So rather try go into, for example, if you like, okay, the bass doesn't have enough presence, try go into the actual channel of the bass and change the way that you've EQ'd that in comparison to the rest of the stuff, or change the balance of all the mix of the tracks, rather than try to EQ it on the stereo output. Do the different timbres have to do with phase reset? Wouldn't explain the loudness though. No, I've checked it as well. I might have not put the phase on there. I believe it's got something to do with the fact that the sub sends at like 0 dB, or it's a different volume on the output than the two oscillators, which are kind of a little bit lower in volume, but the same. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. I actually want to try use the maths modifiers to kind of like flip the modulation signal of the kind of squelch. Let's see how we can go with that, and then maybe sequence like whether it's inverted or not. Let's see if we can do something interesting here. How often do you incorporate hardware into your tracks? I like to try get at least like one piece of something, because I find like the stuff kind of tells a story. Like maybe if it's just myself listening to it, I'm like, I did this by recording this thing in some interesting way or something like that. So I try at least get like one sound or something in with every track. With my album, there was a lot of the 303. I've got a Cyclone Analogic TT303. So I recorded a lot of that, even if it was just like single stabs with a huge reverb or something like that. Just because, like, I guess more for myself, listening back to it, it's like, it tells the story of how I recorded each of those things. But I guess it's not essential, you could just as much do those kinds of things with software. So Phase Plant enables you to put LFOs on macros. Yes, absolutely. But then also, one of the coolest things is you can then put they call it a sidechain on that, so you can have like a mix amount. One of the macros can be a mix amount for the amount of LFO that gets applied to the other macro. So you can do some pretty wild things. So like if this was like a random stepped kind of thing, I think that would work pretty interesting. What's up, Luchko? How's it going? Yes, lots of streams today. Nigel Neptune, good teacher. Did you ever sync your compressors in MS to the track tempo? I think I suggested to you ages ago and always wondered if you ever did try it. I got also no reply. So with myself, I guess it's more of a thing where I look at the like the gain reduction scope and try to get like a more of an accurate representation of what's happening there with the movement, because I guess rather than like the tempo of the track governing something, for example, like the hi-hats could be at a 16th or something like that, or there could be other stuff involved. So that is triggering like the threshold of the compressor. Like say, for example, you've got like a large snare sample that takes up like several milliseconds worth of audio. The threshold's only going to stop triggering, or like the release is only going to start kicking in after that's kind of like played out. So I guess it's more of like a thing where I like to listen. I feel with compression, to work with those kind of numbers is a very dangerous game, because you can so easily do something that you're not necessarily hearing at the time, but then when you reference on multiple different things, you can hear these kind of like dipping in certain frequency bands and stuff, which is the sort of, how can I say, the downside of compression. So I generally try to spend as much time like listening to it and looking at the meters rather than punching in specific presets and numbers and that kind of thing. But being aware of the amount of time it takes for the release to kind of step back in again is definitely important. Hey, what's up, Andrew, Collective Intelligence? How's it going? Thanks for tuning in. Do you still use other samples or make your own always, like kicks, snares, hats, etc.? Sometimes I'll use stuff like snares and that kind of thing. It's to get like a really realistic sound, it's very difficult. So I'll often use like sample packs for that kind of stuff. But kicks I'll generally make because it's kind of like the backbone of the track. So it kind of helps to get it like sounding perfect with the bass and all sorts of stuff. I really should consider getting Phase Plant then. At least try the demo and see if it fits with you. It's very different. So, I mean, at first it was like very kind of, you know, I can see why a lot of people don't like it. But if you kind of just like dive in head first, it will hopefully give you good results. Can you rename the envelopes at the bottom to make it easier? Remember quickly what each one is doing. Unfortunately, there's no grouping system for the bottom things yet. I do hope they're going to introduce something like that. So you can't like rename any of these things. But you also can't rename these, but you can put them in groups, for example. So I kind of hope they're going to make a grouping system for the modulators as well. But as far as I know, there's a couple of things that they are working on with the modulator section, a couple of revamps and stuff. What are you using nowadays for kicks, Phase Plant? Yeah, mainly. I love the fact that it's got this kind of these lanes. And then now, I haven't talked really too much about this on my channel yet, but you can actually load like a snap heap and a multipass inside here and then do like nested effects. So you could, for example, have like just the sub frequencies going through to a specific like transient shaper or specific EQ or filter chain, and then have just the punch layer going through to another specific chain of effects. It's pretty crazy what you can do with it. Try the kicks out on the Bully folder in DMB samples pack number 1, Bully and Corrupted Mind. Cool, I'll check those out. Thank you for that mention. Oi! Yeah, I do agree with you, Nathan Bell. But at this point, I'm not really trying to complete the track. I'm just kind of just putting sounds in, and then I'm going to structure it a little bit more thoughtfully once I've found something that I think is like a hook, something that's like memorable and stuff. There's an inbuilt arpeggiator called Apache. Yeah, I know about that. You've also got several like randoms and stuff. If you go to MIDI modifiers here, you've got random controls for pitch and stuff, which is pretty cool. So, do know about all that stuff. I actually do need to do videos about most of it. I actually need to go to the bathroom quickly. That coffee is hitting my stomach, so it was a bit strong, so I need to go to the bathroom quick. I will be back in a sec. You guys must just say if the audio is okay. I see in OBS there's like a little red light flashing, but sometimes it's pretty inaccurate. So just let me know if I'm clipping or what the story. Okay, sounding sick, brew. Thanks to science. Let me just see if I'm missing any questions here. How are you streaming from Cubase to YouTube? With OBS, I actually have a second sound card. You do get a driver for OBS that you can do it called OBS ASIO. But to be honest with you, it's a nightmare to get like the sample rates and all that. So I actually have a second sound card it's like a different sample rate to what's happening in the DAW. So I just send an analog output into that sound card. That sound card is capturing in OBS. Just much easier to set it up that way. It sounds complicated, but yeah. Otherwise, every time, if you do it digitally, every time you update something, then the entire system crumbles. So I guess it's better going the analog route. But the problem is then you have stuff like clipping. So I do have to occasionally watch out for that. I mean, I've had situations where I've recorded an entire video and the audio is clipping all the way through. So yeah. Let's see. Do you use any compressors? Which ones on your channels, or do you just ignore them and send your mix off to mastering? While I'm producing the tracks, not really. But then what I'll do is, once the track is kind of finished, then I'll go into like different mixing techniques and stuff. I'll often use compressors, but I guess it depends what I want to achieve with the actual mix. So I don't have specific ones that I often go for. But I have been fiddling with the acoustic or audio stuff. The problem is it's super high CPU, so I don't want to load it on this project because I'm already pretty stacked here as it is. So what I'll end up doing is, like, if I'm gonna go with the acoustica stuff, then I'll just bounce stems out and then open up a new project for mixing and then load a couple of those on. But often I find like the thing with like those more high-end compressors is often they're kind of designed around analog stuff, so they impart certain sound characteristics onto the audio. So I guess if you're producing the track, it's difficult to say what you want. Often, like, for example, if I'm producing the track, there'll be certain frequencies which I'm putting in because my room is a different way. And, if I'm starting to add all these different compressors for these different things, sort of willy-nilly, without, double checking which one suits the specific task the best, then you can end up sort of compounding issues much worse than they actually should be. So I don't have a specific one that I turn to, but often I will load a couple up, A/B test between them, what's doing what I want to do the best, and end up going with that one. But the stuff that I have, I got the Flux compressor, that's pretty good. The standard Cubase compressor is decent for like something that's transparent. Like I said, I got the Acoustica stuff, it's pretty decent. I haven't explored it too much. But yeah, a compressor, I guess it's more about listening to what it's doing than finding one that people recommend to you, like this is the best one, if that makes sense. Rather try, see what you've got and try listen to what it's actually doing to the sound. I think that's going to make your life a lot better. Do you think FabFilter's EQ or any other EQ VST can do the same job as Cubase's EQ? Yeah, I think FabFilter's, if I'm not mistaken, Yes, there. It's actually answered there, Marilla Music. I was about to say, if I'm not mistaken, the Cubase EQ and Pro Q3 have the same algorithm, but I think Pro Q3 has more algorithms in it. But then also Equilibrium has even more algorithms. So I guess, if you at the point where you can hear what these different algorithms are doing, then go for Pro Q3 or Equilibrium. I want to know how to move into a drop. Like after I make my section, I always get stuck in how to lead that part into a drop. Maybe I'll do something like that now. I kind of want to try and nail down a more... the percussion here at the moment seems a little bit regimented, so I'm thinking I maybe want to add in a couple of like vocally kind of stabs in a more percussive kind of thing, just to liven up the percussion a little bit. I think it's a little bit stagnant. But I mean, it's just like sort of grid stuff at the moment. So maybe I'll look at creating like a breakdown, and we can look at a couple of ways of doing that. What element should I add? HK. No, I would say if you're going into a breakdown, try sort of strip things back slowly. You know, do like filter outs, that kind of stuff. Slow the percussion, or remove some elements of the percussion a couple of bars beforehand, so the listener is kind of like getting ready for a kind of breakdown, if that makes sense. So I guess with that kind of thing, you want it to feel natural. So prepare the listener for the breakdown. Do you use gates for the drums, especially when you're doing sidetrans? I often do it with like LFO Tool or Gatekeeper, because I prefer, rather than having a kind of, being at the mercy of a dynamic processor's release time, being able to, change it in a bar, have these different movements and stuff to create different grooves. I think that's a lot more powerful. So I often end up doing stuff like with LFO Tool or Gatekeeper. Do you use Contact at all? To be honest, not really. I used to use it quite a bit, but more for kind of traditional instruments and that kind of thing. But I think, since I've kind of been getting into UVI Falcon and stuff, the need for Contact has dwindled. So I believe I don't even have it installed on my current setup, if that answers that question. Cool, let me get on with it. So I want to throw in a couple of vocal samples here. I'm not sure if you guys can hear the audition, if that's coming out the right channel. No, I don't think so. So I'm just going to chuck in a couple here. And then I want to like chop out just single syllables. And kind of use those more as like a percussive thing. Try kind of blend that in with the drums to make more of a kind of tribal vibe. Let's see what happens. You have to excuse me. I actually installed Cubase 10 last night, and I haven't imported like all my shortcuts or my preferences or anything like that. So workflow is a little bit slow today, but just excuse me if I am a bit sluggish. Anyway, Scalar 2 video, please. I bought the plugin, still haven't used it. Waiting for your tutorial. I know I keep saying this. I'm so sorry, HK. I keep saying this, but I actually do need to get in contact with them because my version doesn't seem to be updated, and so yeah, I do need to contact them. But it's on my list of things to do. Don't you worry. I've actually been working on some DIY stuff in my studio and that, so I've been a little bit busy. Haven't really been able to do much videos and that kind of thing. So yeah. Anyway, I'm back now. How did you equally chop that audio sample? Okay, so I have mentioned this before. Sorry, it was just I get in the workflow. So if you hold, if you've got your scissor tool open, which is 3 on your, if you press the button 3 on the on your keyboard, and you hold Alt, you'll see like the little scissor gets this square next to it, and that basically chops it in equally chopped bits. So it's cool for chopping out these little chunks, you know, where you don't want it to be kind of too audible, I guess. But you still want it to be like, it sounds like a vocal. If you're also wondering how I removed that click, I basically just selected all of the samples and then just gave it a millisecond of fade in, and actually 2 milliseconds of fade out, just so it doesn't have that click. And then I want to kind of go in and get these to be similar sort of volumes, but just moving this little square downwards a little bit like that. It's a very crude way of doing it, but I'm just kind of working quickly, I guess, more than anything. Okay, I actually want to get a couple more chops. Just go through this. I'm just choosing randomly. There's no kind of process here. Just looking for ones that have like quite a lot of audio in them. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that is super handy, Nigel Neptune. If you hold shift while you're dragging something over from the media pool, it will replace every sample in the track. I didn't actually know that. I think that's something maybe new that they've added. I'm not too sure about that, but yeah, I didn't actually know about that. Very nice. So here what I want to try to do is try shift each of these like vocal hits onto something closer to the key of the track. I'm not sure if it's going to sound good or not. I'm just kind of experimenting here. So yeah, anyway. I actually need to go pee quick. I will be back in a sec. Let me just loop this thing for you guys, and then I will check the comments for any questions. Okay, I see there's a question. What is the icebreaker? Hi, what's the sound on LP or HP building up? I presume you mean this one, and I won't be able to tell you exactly how it's made. I can just tell you that it's made in phase plant. Let's see. Best cheap synth. Do you mean hardware or do you mean plugin? I've never really been a fan of Massive. I don't know why, but the interface was always just a little bit clunky. It's hard to see like what's actually going on with the routing, whereas I find Serum is like very straightforward, and Faceplant's a little bit confusing, but there's little signal path like along the side that shows you what's happening. So I've always found Massive was a little bit of a pain in terms of the routing and stuff. I could never figure out exactly what was going on there. So it never clicked with me. Let's see what else here. You could add reverb. What's happening? Is it okay to add slight reverb to the mix bus? I wouldn't. I would keep the mix bus, like the stereo output, clean. If you find there are elements that need reverb, then add a send return. So, for example, do you use Anna 2? Nope, I don't have it. I should get it, I guess, because so many people are talking about it. But like when I look at it, I don't see anything like that new compared to the stuff that I've got. I feel like Serum, Faceplant, Hive, and then a couple of the other ones that I use for specific tasks kind of ticks all the boxes that I personally need for sound design. But obviously, like, there's extra stuff. For example, like the Buchle easel for that specific kind of weird spacey noise that it's really good at. Viper has copied the Access virus to a shockingly precise replica. Superstore is 100% the same. Well, I don't see how that would be too hard, considering the virus is a VA, so it's just a digital synth inside. So if you know how the stuff is kind of, I guess you could probably do it on most synths, most VSTs, replicate the certain parameters and stuff like that. Yeah. I guess that's also the power of wavetable synthesis nowadays is, they're able to kind of recreate these classic sounds and you can use them reliably, rather than kind of resampling, Yeah, Diva is good. Anything from Yuhi is always good. What was that doing? Oh, yes, I wanted to create like a breakdown. So I think here I've already got this part with this like vocal, where that kind of echo, the feedback of the echo kind of gets boosted. I guess that's like one of my favorite ways of leading into a kind of breakdown is to use a delay with a lot of feedback. So I actually just want to copy what I did here over again. We can put this breakdown over here. Yeah, Pigments is also really, really good. I also, for some reason, always forget to mention it, but it's probably got some of the best randoms out of any of the VSTs I've used. It's the most controllable random. I guess that's a weird concept. But it offers you the most control over the randomization parameters and stuff like that, and it has got quantization and stuff built in. So it is very, very good for these like really random, those kind of foresty leads and stuff I really enjoy making. Although I don't do that kind of thing too often. Pigments is really good randomization. So here, I basically had like a snap heap on this group for the lows. So I just automated a filter in there. But I think what could work a little bit better is to render out a part. So let's try with like the kick and bass and the percussions, because that can create some nice kind of breakdowny type things. Let's go export. So things have changed a little bit, like I was saying earlier. So just excuse me if I'm a little bit sluggish here. We want to create a new audio track, insert into pool. Yes. So the idea here is we can create like another echo effect for this like kick and bass and percussions little loop that we created. So I guess it depends, what timing you want to use on the delay. I'm just going to use color copy here, of course. And so let's say, for example, if we go with 1/4 dotted, then we'll probably want to cut like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 16ths. So it's like kick, hat, snare, cut. Does that make sense? So that it'll kind of, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but listen. So I like to experiment and do like a bunch of different ones. So I will just like render this out. Let's actually just make sure that it's got a fade out, just so there's no clicks in the render. Boom. Then let's make another one, but let's say halve this, so it'll be just 3 of those, and then we can put it onto like 1/8 dotted. Oh, it's the audio from the mic. Sorry about that. Ever tried writing something like trailer music scoring to picture? Yeah, I'm not too good with the theory side of things, so it always falls flat there. I think with scoring for film and picture, you need a pretty solid background with the theory side of things, and I think the sound design kind of just complements that. But yeah, what is your favorite compressor for drums? I don't know. I was talking about compressors a little bit early on in the stream. I don't really have something favorite for one specific task. I like to just compare everything and see what suits that specific application the best. Have you ever produced high tech? Yeah, a little bit back in the day. Also, is your music on Spotify? I would love to add your tracks to my playlist. No, I chose not to go the Spotify route for various reasons. I do have music on Bandcamp. You can check some of my other videos. There'll be a link in the description, I believe. Otherwise, my latest tracks here are here on YouTube on my channel. Which plugin do you prefer for making creepy random noises? Yeah, Buchle Easel V is nice for like spacey noises. I said earlier, Pigments is nice for like those sine wave type tweety bird noises because of all the cool randomization stuff in there. But yeah, otherwise Faceplant is really cool for the granular side of things, loading samples and messing with those. The door sound is very low, but the mic is high. Yeah, I think it was because I didn't switch over to the DAW, but let's just... I will go back there in a sec. I actually need to pee again. That coffee was really strong, so I need to pee again, but let me just play it for a bit for you guys, and then I'll run to the bathroom. Why don't you like about Spotify, if not something you don't want to say? It's not that I don't like Spotify, I don't feel like it's right for me, for my music, or for Psytrance in general. How did you make that vocal thing? This one here? I made it during the stream, maybe about like 30 minutes ago or so. It was one of those happy accidents, I guess. Would you ever consider doing any tutorial on experimental hardcore type stuff? I wouldn't know too much about it, to be honest with you. I think any tutorial would be more... it wouldn't be very knowledgeable for me to talk about something like that because I wouldn't know where to start myself. Keep screen share. Okay, cool. I will do that. Also, just want to quickly see what my dogs are on about. What plugin? How to phase plant 1. Sorry? What plugin? How to phase... What? Is it this? Okay, anyway, let me loop this for you guys. I'll be back in a moment. think you need to use goat screaming one-shots. Yes, I agree. Send me some. Ever tried every sound at once? What's that? Is that a technique or is that a plugin? Do you always send to mastering, and has it ever come back and you've been told to mix your track again? Yes, quite often. I guess it's like less and less more as I progress in my skills that I've been asked to mix it. But yeah, it's quite a normal thing to be given some tips as to how to improve the mix. What freaked the dogs out? It's the neighbors drilling with their nonsense again. I don't think it's F sharp though. I think it's F minor. I think there was just a bit of miscommunication between swapping projects and stuff. I will tell you in 1 second. So this is transposed 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is in F minor. Or F Phrygian, I think, actually. I don't know. F. I'm in a zone here. Sorry, I see capitals going mad there. Normal cat, yes, I can hear you. Well, I can see you're typing. I can't hear you. How would you make distorted lead synths like the ones Infected Mushroom use? Try FM. Try saw waves with distortions, high pass filters. Check out my other videos. I've got quite a lot of stuff that should help you. Okay, I don't even know where to start. If I've missed a question, maybe just ask the question again and tag me. Like what? CPTNLAW. Captain Law. I think that's it. Like what he did. It's so funny, like how many times people say that my music reminds them of the tunes in Wipeout. I don't know if it's a good thing or if it's a bad thing, but I know that they used to have a lot of like old school Goa stuff in Wipeout. It was actually such a fun game. I remember playing it in my youth. Am I that old? But yeah, Wipeout 2097. I remember that game. Okay, that's going to take some time to render. Let me see if I missed any questions here. What do you have in the low mids folder? Oh, that was that's the stuff that came with the. It's a verse track, with the guy that's one of these guys who can't press caps lock. No, I'm joking. I think he's telling the other guy not to shout so much. But he sent me. I think he splits his synths up into low mids, high mids, whereas I kind of just have everything in a synths folder and then split them into several folders from there. So it's basically just other synths, but of the low mid variety. Funny enough, I think the bongos and stuff are in the high mids thing because there's like some frequency shifting and stuff happening on those. Like the more affected kind of bongo stuff is in the high mids. I don't know why my computer's taking so long to render this audio file. What it's a low mids sounds then? Yeah, it's basically like synths that have low mids in them, as opposed to like high frequency ARP and leads and stuff. Seriously serious questions. Bus with on-off automation for effects or use send channels? I guess it depends. With stuff like reverbs, if you're wanting like a hyper-realistic sound, I guess with sidetrons you can kind of get away with a lot of stuff. But often when I'm doing like chill out stuff, when you're wanting that kind of more hyper-realistic reverb sound, then it definitely helps to have all of your sounds going to one send channel with a single reverb, because you're kind of creating this digital space. And often what happens if you have like a very simple track or simple arrangement and you've got like 2 or 3 sounds with different reverbs on them, you can actually very easily tell that they're in kind of different spaces, if that makes sense. So when using reverbs in a kind of mixing context or with more finer material, I guess, then it helps to put them on a send channel and send several of them to the same reverb, because then they have a kind of cohesive space that they fit into, if that makes sense. But I mean, that being said, is I use reverb a lot in a kind of sound design context, so I guess it depends. I can't show you guys that patch just yet, but for quick idea of what's happening there, the latest phase plant update introduced these new unison modes, and there's one called Shepherd, which is pretty insane. So that's what that riser is made, just essentially tweaking the Shepherd unison effect with some delay and reverb and stuff on. But here I'm just finding some random sound effect stuff to add in. What DAW is being used here? Cubase Pro. I actually updated to 10.5 last night, so yeah. What made me choose Cubase over other DAWs? I guess, well, when I was choosing, Ableton wasn't really around, and the mixer. In my opinion, Cubase's mixer is indispensable to my workflow, at least. If Cubase had to disappear off the face of the planet and I were forced to choose another DAW, it would probably be Bitwig, and I would probably bounce out renders of like the multiple tracks and then put it into Reaper, because I think Reaper's mixer is like closest to Cubase. But yeah, what monitors do you use, and do you have a subwoofer? I've actually got a video coming soon where I talk a little bit more about my studio. I actually did answer that question in my previous like studio tour video, but yeah, I don't want to give it too much. Do you use Halion much? I should. It's very good, but I don't use it too much, to be honest with you. Okay, I think I'm going to call it a stream. Let me just see if there's any last questions here. Guys, need help buying new synth, mainly for Goa. What would you choose? Peak, Hydrosynth, Pro 3, OB6, Virus TI2, Mother 32, already have a 303. I think if you already have a 303, going with something like a Virus is a good choice because, like, I don't personally have a Virus, so I can't talk from experience, but it's... And if that is obviously within the budget, because it's quite a wide variety of different budgets I see there, but it's so different to the 303 in that it's like polyphonic, it's got all the presets and that kind of thing. I think the combination of the two is it'll get you everything. You know, the 303 is just the raw sound, and the TI2 will be sound design of everything else. I mean, that's how I would use it in that context, you know. What is your go-to plugin for pads? At the moment, Hive 2. Just the presets are so damn good. I go to those often for pads at the moment. Otherwise, Phase Plant, I like doing, using the samples. They've got some pretty decent, like, vocal chanty type stuff built in there, which you can kind of pitch shift and add a transgate to. I've done various tutorials on that, but I enjoy using that for the sample-based kind of pads and stuff. But for more synthy type of stuff, then Hive 2 is definitely the one to go for. I think just the sound of Hive is incredible. Let's see. I have used Diva, but I don't own it. I tried the demo and it was awesome, but I just never got around to buying it. I think it does more things, obviously, than Hive does, and it's got extra features, but I think it kind of ticks that box of just pure good sound and not too complicated, whereas when I want to get a little bit more complex with stuff, then I end up going with some of the other options, phase plants and all that, just because you can do so many things, whether it's stack the effects up and layer it and all sorts of stuff like that. I find if you're gonna push it beyond something that's designed to be simple and beautiful, then to start the journey into sound design and then hit a wall kind of often gets a little bit annoying, but I guess it depends. I should definitely try it more. Let's see. Okay, I think I'm going to call it. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Holy moly, thank you for 50 likes. That's insane. Repro instead. Diva does more, but Repro just sounds fantastic. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll do that. Because, like, I think you understand what I was trying to say, Nate, about, like, it does the stuff very well, but if I want to kind of push the boundaries, then I've got so many other options, Serum, Phase Plant, Falcon, so many different things, whereas I think stuff like Repro and Hive, they're particularly simple but incredibly effective. And I think that's the kind of, in my opinion, the power of the UHI stuff. But yeah. Is Fruity Loops better than Cubase? Whatever you have that's going to help you make music right now is the better option. I personally prefer Cubase. I found it was like a step up in my progression, but I know lots of guys who use FL Studio successfully. So I guess whatever you prefer. Cool. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. And thank you for even more likes after I said that. But yeah, see you guys next time. Enjoy the rest of your evening.